For the last 7 years, I've been using this stupid simple 45-minute presentation framework to turn complete strangers into $10,000 clients like clockwork, doing it day in, day out. It's so boring and so repetitive, but it just works, and I've made over $40 million so far using it. And in today's video, I'm going to share with you something that AI could never teach you. I'm going to show you the exact process for building an insane amount of trust with people in a very short amount of time, and how doing it will have them wanting to give you $10,000 for your most premium programs, and how you can do it without any experience, a huge brand, or even no social media following. So let's get into it. And the particular presentation we're talking about is a webinar presentation. We are inviting potential prospects and clients to hang out with us either live on a presentation, or you can even pre-record it and automate it and run some traffic to that. And it does everything you need from start to finish to take a prospect from completely cold, never going to give you money, to almost completely sold, and they're ready to book a sales conversation with you at the end, and they've got credit card in hand. The problem with sales calls in our industry right now is that everyone knows they're going to be sold. They come on apprehensive. They're not willing and ready to part with their cash. What we need is an incredible, highly effective webinar presentation that does all the heavy lifting for us, so that we have ready to buy prospects out the other end. So if you're ready, grab a notebook, because you are going to want to follow along. From start to finish, our webinar presentation needs to be around 45 minutes. Now, you may have heard people talk about webinars need to be an hour or 2 hours, not to achieve what we're trying to achieve. All I want to do is build unbreakable trust with the prospect, educate them and provide them value, and make it clear that I have and I am the solution that they've been looking for. And I find you can achieve those things in 45 minutes. So therefore, it doesn't need to be longer than that. Now, when we're planning and creating a presentation like this, we chop it up into 3 primary sections. You can't have a successful webinar without all 3. I'm going to walk you through the first one. This is called setting the stage. This is where most people go wrong in our industry, because they start a presentation, be it a webinar or even a stage presentation or even a VSL presentation, and they start the presentation by talking about themselves. But you have to understand, people have not joined your webinar presentation because they want to hear about you. They're actually there for themselves. They are waiting to hear something that glues them to the presentation. So there's a few key things that we do in the first 10 minutes of our webinar. Okay, you're going to want to write that down in your notes. 10 minutes. The first thing is we're going to, right at the beginning, hook their attention. I'm going to get straight to the point. Hey, welcome to today's presentation, where I'm going to show you insert blank. What is the big result that you're going to help them to achieve? Why should they stick around on this presentation today? Then the next thing that we need to do is tease them with the end result. So we hook their attention with what they're going to learn. Then we tell them what result they're going to get if they learn that thing. So now they're getting really emotionally invested in this. Then we move to a really powerful step where we talk about what I call the without statements. So we show them how they're going to be able to achieve this without all the things that they either don't have or don't want. So if they don't have much time, if that's your audience, then you would say, and you're going to be able to achieve this even if you have minimal time to be able to invest into this. Or maybe if for your audience, it's that they don't have the expensive equipment that they might need to get the result that you help them with. So you're going to say, and you can do this without having all the expensive gear. So you're going to list a bunch of things that they can get this result without. Then and only then do you progress to the next step, which is the story. This is where you're going to be relatable to them now, because you've won them over. They are on the presentation, they're glued to it, they're liking the topic. Now you can introduce yourself, but you also need to tell your story in a way that positions the thing that's going to be sold out the other end. I was at a mastermind a few years ago. There's a guy called Perry Belcher in the audience. Perry, for those of you that might know, is one of the OGs in our space and one of the greatest copywriters still alive today. He was in the audience, and I shared this idea of creating a positioning story instead of just an origin story. And he grabbed me at the end and said, that was the best presentation of this entire mastermind. And I've taken a page full of notes. I'm sharing that with you because if it can help Perry, it can help you. Instead of an origin story where you just tell them where you grew up and who you are and your dog's name and your family, right? Instead of an origin story, you tell a positioning story. A positioning story is where you take the thing you're going to sell out the other end and you tell the parts of your story that set that up. If you're selling a coaching program at the end, you're going to tell a story in a way that positions an anchor moment in your story where everything changed when you got some coaching. Then, if you have them, you follow on with some success stories. If you have some students, if you have some ex-clients that have gotten a great result, you back up everything you've said up until this point with some proof that you've helped other people to do the same thing. And then the final part of stage 1, before we move into stage 2, and this stuff is gonna blow your brain. This is where we break down who this is for and who this is not for. So we've hooked their attention, we've told them the result they're gonna get, we've backed it up with our story, we've positioned something that's coming later, and we've got some success stories in there. Now is the moment for us to make sure that only those that progress through watching this presentation are potential clients for you. We don't want the wrong people on the webinar. We want the right people who are most likely to become clients later. So I have 2 slides at this point. And I say, and at this point in the presentation, I don't want to waste your time, so let's be really clear who this is for. And I describe my ideal dream avatar. And here's who this is not for. And I describe the people that I want to repel. Very, very powerful moment in the webinar. By the way, if you're enjoying this content so far and you're watching this in time, I have a live workshop that I'm hosting here real soon with a group of my customers and clients. I'm actually going to work with them to build their presentation. We're going to go through every single step, then we're going to pause, we're going to implement, we're going to use AI prompts to get it done quickly, and you will leave this workshop with a highly effective presentation ready to launch for you to land some more clients in your business. If that sounds good, click the link in the description box, get all the details. I'd love to have you join us. So all of this happens quite fast. That's 10 minutes to set the stage. If they get past 10 minutes, you've pretty much got them hooked. You'd have to do something very wrong for them to drop off. And we move into the second stage of the presentation. This is going to go for around about 25 minutes. And this is called the wow, not how content. This is the section of the presentation where we genuinely provide some value. If you're watching this right now, you're probably like me. You want the income, but you also want the impact, and you want to make sure that everything you do is providing value to the marketplace. Well, this is where we do that. However, we're doing it in a very unique way. We're doing wow-based content instead of how-based content. What's the difference? Wow-based content makes someone go, wow, this is awesome. Wow, this is exciting. Wow, this is what I need. Now I need to work with this individual to make sure that this is a result that I get. How-based content teaches them exactly how to do the thing so that they no longer need you, and then they're not going to join your coaching or your program out the other end. So there's a fine art to this. It takes some practice, but we're wanting to focus on wow-based content, not how-based content. And we break it up into 3 sections. So we're going to be talking about each one for about 8 to 9 minutes each. So what you're essentially going to do is take your topic, your expertise, your knowledge. I'm going to break it up into 3 big takeaways for your audience and talk about them for 8 to 9 minutes each. I think you can all do that. If you can't, dare I say, you're probably not an expert at your topic, because we can all talk about each thing for 8 to 9 minutes. Now, what I'm going to do is give you an example from a few years ago when I got this wrong and I had a webinar that just collected tumbleweed and 0 sales. And one simple switch that I made to this, which changed everything and unlocked a $1 million webinar presentation. And it was this. It was this unlock right here. So let me break it down for you. My first ever webinar presentation was teaching people how they could grow organically on YouTube. And so back before I knew better, I was teaching how-based content because it just feels like the right thing to do. If you're going to provide value, then you legitimately teach someone how to do it. And then you just hope that the law of reciprocity kicks in and they want to buy your program. So here's literally what my content was. The first step in the process was I taught them how to do keyword research so that they could find some keywords that they could target to get some traffic to their business. The second thing, once I helped them find some keywords, I showed them how to record these videos in a way that would match the keyword and would get ranked on the first page of the results on YouTube and Google. And then in the third step, I said, now you've got your video, now you've got your keyword, let me show you the backlinking that we do and all these other SEO strategies to make sure that you are positioned at the very top to get all of that traffic. At the end of the presentation, I said, who here's gotten value from today's session? And the chat box is going crazy. Yes, 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 yes. Then I make an offer and I make 0 sales. And I'm baffled. I am so confused In hindsight, I look back and I realized the big issue. I taught them exactly what to do, and then I offered them my program, which was going to show them, oh, exactly what to do, but now they've got to pay. Well, they're going to say, well, no, thanks. I got the goods here. I'm going to try that by myself first. And you're actually doing not just yourself, but your attendees a disservice if you do it this way. You're doing yourself a disservice because you're not landing any clients. You're doing them a disservice because you can't possibly teach your entire system in 3 simple steps across 25 minutes. So you've left them with a false sense of security and you've set them up to fail. This right here was the massive unlock for me that changed everything and turned my webinars from 0 to 7-figure producing machines. And it was understanding how to create wow-based content. So let me give you an example. Step 1, I used to teach them how to go out there and find keywords. I've changed it now from how to wow, and instead my training point was why keyword traffic is some of the most valuable traffic that you can get for your business across the entire internet. I gave comparisons of studies that have been done that show when someone searches for a key phrase and then looks for a solution, they are 11 times more valuable than someone that you're trying to get in front of on social media. Give them all these examples, they get to the end of point 1 and they go, wow, that sounds incredible. I need some keyword traffic. Then the second training point used to be how to create these videos. It changed to a wow-based training point, which was how anyone can produce these videos with little experience and a low budget. And so I give loads of examples and break down all their objections for why they might not be able to do it. So they get to the end of point 2 and they go, I think I can do this. I think I'm enough. I think I've got the tech. I think I can make this happen. Okay, now I'm getting really, really excited. And the third training point used to be how to get these videos ranked at the very top of the search results. I turned that how point into a wow point, and instead I showed them the power of being positioned at the very top of YouTube and Google. I gave them examples of how much traffic is floating around at the top of Google. I gave them examples of hundreds of thousands of people that are clicking on these links if you can only get to the very top. So they get to the end of these 3 training points. They understand that keyword traffic is so valuable. They understand how to get in front of them and they feel like I could do that. And they also understand the power and the result that they would get if they could only get to the top. Now, when I made this switch at the end of the presentation, I said to the audience, have you got value from the session today? Exact same thing happened. Yes, 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 best presentation I've ever been on. This is incredible, this is incredible, this is incredible. But then I make an offer. Guess what? I'm refreshing my Stripe account every few minutes while I'm on the webinar and I can hardly believe my eyes. I'm talking to the audience and every time I refresh, I've got multiple sales landing, $1,000, $1,000, $1,000, $1,000. I finished that webinar. I did over $50,000 in a single evening and this was the only switch I made. And that webinar went on to do over $1 million in revenue. Now, all of this will be for nothing and you'll still have a webinar that doesn't work if you don't execute stage 3 correctly, which I'll teach you right now. But quick summary, 3 training points that are all focused on wowing the audience and not giving away the how. There's quite a process to this and it takes some practice. We're going to be going deep on this at the workshop. So if you want to learn about this in detail, do join us at the workshop. I'd love to have you there. Now, the third and final stage is the call to action. This is where we're actually trying to get the person to make a decision to move on to the next step. Now, this is another 10 minutes. And you might be thinking, John, if we're just inviting them to the next step, surely that doesn't take a whole 10 minutes. It actually does, because it needs to be done just right. For this type of webinar, 45 minutes, I am inviting someone at the end to book a conversation with me because I'm going to be selling a $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 coaching. And it's really important that we set this up correctly because at this point, they have high buyer intent, meaning they're excited about you, your topic, where they're at. Now they need very clear direction as to what to do next. So there's one really important piece that we do immediately, which is that we tie all of this together. There's a thing that we talk about here in our industry that people remember the last thing that you spoke about. So like when they get to this moment, their primary memory is about the last thing you just said. Whereas we want them to remember all of this stuff. So we do something of a recap, something of a summary, something to tie it all together. So at this point in the webinar, I would say something like, so look, so far we have covered a lot. Let's do a quick recap. We talked about this, we talked about this, we talked about this, then we went through this, and now you understand the power of this, and now we're here. And that brings us to this moment right now. So now think about it. Instead of their last memory being one tiny isolated piece of the presentation, you've now left their last memory a recap of absolutely everything. And they're fully reminded of all the reasons why they're excited and should want to move forward. And then I do something called Inspire Change. And Inspire Change is where I spend a moment with the audience and I almost present a crossroads. They could leave this webinar and go back to what they were doing before, feeling stuck in bad habits, stuck without the result, and wandering aimlessly around the industry trying to find a problem to their solution. Or we've got this new path. I've opened your eyes to the stuff that I teach and that I do, and hopefully you're excited about it. And so we're in a moment right now where, and then I inspire change. You need to make a decision to come down this path and start a new journey, put a bit of trust in me and the process and what you've learned today, and let's absolutely crush this and get you the result you've been after. So we inspire change. We emotionally get them caught up in, look, it's decision time. What are you going to do? Then I do 3 very key things. Number 1, I invite them after I inspire change to book a call with me. I present the opportunity to do so and I drop a link to where they can go to my calendar and book in. It's immediately followed up, however, by explaining what's going to happen on that call. This is really important. This is another reason why you don't get as many sales calls booked as you might like, is because people aren't booking like they used to. It used to be exciting to book a sales call. It's no longer exciting for prospects to do that. Once they've been on 1 or 2 sales calls and they understand how the process works and the script that the salesman's going to use on the other end of the phone, there is no reason why they'd be excited about booking a sales call and going into that process. So we have to make them feel comfortable. We have to tell them what's going to happen next so that they can visualize it and picture it, and it makes them feel more comfortable with the process and your booking rates go up. So I invite them to book a call and I say, here's what's going to happen on the call. I'm going to get to know you. I'm going to ask you some questions. You get to ask me some questions. We're going to do this. I'm going to endeavor to provide you as much value as I possibly can. I'm going to give you some tailoring, some tweaks. So you explain what's going to happen. Then that is followed up with what I call the offer tease. And the offer tease is where we explain that at the end of this conversation, the ultimate goal is seeing whether working with you and joining your coaching program is a good fit for them and a good fit for you. So you talk a little bit about the offer, just so much that they feel informed and potentially excited about that prospect, but it's called the offer tease because you don't actually allow them to join. You tease them with it. So you follow up by saying, so that's what I do offer. However, there's no guarantees that we'll be working together. I'm very selective with who I work with inside of my program, which is why we need to have this call, get to know each other, and we'll together see if it's a good fit. So we've teased the offer, we've not made the offer, and now they know exactly why they're booking a call. Now, if you're really smart, you'll have an application form after they book the call, because you want to make sure that you are filtering out the time wasters and the people that aren't that serious, and filtering out the people that have somehow made their way to the very end, but they're just not a good fit to work with you. So they book a call and they're hit with an application form on the next page. So we draw attention to that in the presentation. So when you book a call with me today, immediately on the next page, there'll be a few questions to answer. Go ahead and take some time, fill those out. It takes 2 minutes, but it gives us a chance to hit the ground running before we have our call together. It's so important you answer these questions that I may end up canceling your spot if you don't, so that I can free that up for someone else who might be a little bit more serious. So I'd say something like that for the application. And then here, final step is your final charge for them to book the call. You're wrapping up the whole webinar, you're saying your goodbyes, you're inspiring a bit more change, and you're doing your final chance to get that person to book a call before you end the webinar. So you now know the structure of an incredible $1 million webinar presentation. However, if you don't know how to drive traffic to it, if you don't know how to build the funnel that it sits in, and if you don't know how to close the deal the other side, then you'll never make any money with this presentation, which is why your next video should be this one right here, where I break down my entire master plan, fill in the blanks, and show you my exact system for building and scaling 7-figure businesses like this. So check this one out. Hope you enjoyed this one. See you again soon.